Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Oscar Rodriguez. I am an artist for self-help graphics, and I'm an illustrator. I focus a lot on portrait illustration. Today, that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing a demonstration on how to do a portrait using the basic fundamental elements of art and design. So join me for this hopefully hour and something, and create a cool piece or learn something maybe you might have known or you might have or something new, so give me just a moment and let me set up. All right, here you go. That's the illustration we're going to be doing. All right. Okay. So this is obviously a portrait of Frida Kahlo. She's one of my absolute favorite artists. I really like her backstory. She's been drawn so many times by so many different artists, but I think every single time that some like an artist tries to draw her, it's a whole new like approach and idea or vision of who she was. And you always try to capture the person. And I think the important thing about portrait illustration is that you try to capture a likeness as best as you can. So if you have a photo reference, I always recommend printing out or having an actual photo of your subject 3/4 of a way. That way, it's more interesting as opposed to just being straight, straight on, like looking straight ahead. I think this way, 3/4 is just perfect for portrait illustration. Um, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as what your subject is, but as long as you try to capture a likeness, specifically like with the eyes, which is the most important part of a portrait. I think you should be good. And I think if you're going to be doing portrait illustration, the most important thing you have to focus on is capturing the eyes just a little. If you're just a little off with the eyes, um it people will catch that, and they'll look at it, they'll know something's off. Sometimes they won't even know why, but our brain just has like this cool way of picking little things like that. um so I did two of them because I'm actually gonna show you guys how to look at a portrait in its most fundamental elements. So I'm gonna get a marker. Ooh, sorry. Get a marker. All right. So the basic thing that whenever you approach portrait illustration or any kind of art is trying to, work with the most basic basic shapes, which would be like, a square, triangle, circle. Those are like the basic shapes that pretty much build up everything that you see around you in terms of art, visualizing art. So in this instance, I'm gonna put this one, put these aside for right now. Like you always want to start off big. All right, don't start off with the details. Just start off with, in its most basic form. And that is trying to visualize these shapes. So right here, what I see, uh, it's I see like a circle right here. It's like more like an oval shape, but that's what I see. And then inside this oval or circle, I see that there's another one that kind of goes like this, right? The ear is another one right here, circle. all these flowers, like it looks like it's a lot, but you break it down into simple shapes, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, it's not that much. It's just all, the detail and the petals are what makes the illusion that there's so much going on. But if you break it down, it's only just a few flowers. This right here will be like a rectangle right here, and then when you start talking about three-dimensional forms, because you have your shapes, which are flat, and then you have your forms, which are three-dimensional. So you have your cube, you have your cylinder, and you have your sphere. All right, so right here would be more like a cylinder right here, because it's three-dimensional. You always want to capture that form turn, so it's kind of like this. And if you pretend that it's an actual cylinder, and if we were to illustrate the actual roundness, I'll just do this little dots right here. It's kind of like if you get your cup, I think that's like a perfect way to visualize a cylinder, is by getting your cup and you're actually able to see the contour, which is the lines going around your your form. Anyhow, all right. So now with the nose, it's more like a sort of like a triangle shape right here, like the nostrils right here, and it kind of goes up like that, right? And then once you get like even right here, it's almost like a big triangle. If I were to like do this right here, it's a big triangle. And then what I would do next after I visualize the basic forms, I would go ahead and find the line of symmetry, which is your center line in the face. And as humans, we're very symmetrical. If we were to draw a line halfway, our bodies looking straight, our the left side and the right side are identical. So the same thing is true with with a portrait. But first you have to find that that center line, which goes, since this portrait is three-quarters of a three-quarter view, it's not going to be straight ahead. Like if it was straight ahead and this would be the face, straight ahead would be like this, right? But this one is turned just a little bit, like so. Then this line goes a little bit more like that. So that means it's looking that way. Same thing is true if you had this line. Now you know it's looking that way. And notice how I have this little like this cool little contour right here, this shape that kind of turns, because a, a sphere, it's very round. So you're not gonna draw a straight line cutting through it, right? You're gonna start from the center point on the top and bottom, and kind of curve it just a little bit, and that suggests that there's this that it turns, or that it's a sphere, or whatnot. All right, so I'm gonna find that center point, and the cool thing about her hair is that you could kind of see it right here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and draw that. Kind of turns this way. There you go. And now when it comes to drawing, you always want to measure things. So you always want to measure distances. So like from the top here to the bottom, you kind of have to see where the eyes are. And they're like about right here. And then from the eyes to the bottom of the chin, where's the nose? Right here. And then from the bottom of the nose to the chin, you have your mouth right here. Okay. And then now I'm going to measure between the bottom of the nose to the mouth and the relationship between the upper lip, like where it lies. So it's going to be about right here. Same thing with the bottom lip, right here. And this is easy because I'm actually doing it off of a actual photograph, so it's super easy to do it this way. Um, but but uh, but it's the same fundamental principle when you're actually looking at a portrait, at somebody. All right, so now the eyes are the most important part of, like I mentioned before, trying to visualize or trying to capture someone's likeness. So the eyes are actually like, if you've ever seen movies or even anatomy, you know that an eyeball, it's really a sphere inside a skeleton, right? And the eyelids, if you look at your own eyelids, they kind of wrap around your eye like this. And you have your what is this called? Where your teardrops go, whatever. And then there's a fold on top of your eyelid, your upper eyelid, that goes like this. And then the bottom part of your eye goes like that, right? And I'm gonna get a different color to it. I could um get this cool magenta. Okay. All right. Can't really see that much, but whatever. All right. So then this is my eyelid right here. And then the eye actually rests inside like this, right? So the same thing right here. We only see the eyelid and the actual eye, but it's really the the skull actually comes down like this right here. And oftentimes just being able to see that will help a lot in in visualizing and looking at your drawing right here. And the eyeball is inside, like we mentioned before. And now you got your eyelids, which kind of like that. And right now, what I'm showing you guys is just the fundamental way of looking at a portrait. So once we start drawing it, I'm gonna show you guys, like kind of how I approach it and how I visualize this without actually having to draw on a picture. So yeah, just finding center lines and you know all of that, and the eyebrows, kind of also finding planes, like if you were to get like the way that I approach this, just any kind of life drawing is, I pretend that I'm like a sculptor and I'm chiseling from a piece of marble, right? You have to chisel parts, you have to create planes. The same thing right here. So you have like this plane right here, you chisel this off, this part right here, this whole face kind of goes like this. Is like what we see. Same thing right here. So it's kind of like chiseling off. Like if I had a knife, I would like cut that out. And I even shade it like this just so that I know where my light is coming from. So the way that you see a form in a three-dimensional space is that not only like right now this looks like a flat drawing, but once you start adding some shading, it turns it into a 3D object that exists in in space. So it finding light is pretty simple. You just find a spot where you want the light to come from. In this instance, light is coming from here and it's casting down like this. And then you have your shadow. So whatever the light hits is going to be illuminated. And whatever the light doesn't hit, it's going to be in shadow. And if you need to find an object or a mirror, you'll be able to see that. But like in a portrait, like when you take a photo and you're using reference, that's already, you don't really have to think about that. You don't have to think about where the light's coming from because you already have it captured in the photograph. Like you just look at it and it's observation. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this to the side, and I'm gonna start doing my, I'm gonna approach this illustration or this portrait using just basic tools like pencil, eraser, and add some color in with some color pencils, and I'm gonna blend it in with some baby oil. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Put this away. Also, if you are like me and your hands tend to get a little sweaty or whatever, I highly suggest you use like a piece of parchment paper or just a regular piece of paper. You don't want to be smudging your graphite all over the paper. So I'm just gonna put this to the side right here. Actually, I'm gonna put it right here so you guys can see. All right. So the way that I begin drawing this is I look at, like I've mentioned before, like I have to measure stuff. So this part right here, it's about like right here. And then from the bottom part of the paper to the top, like where does the eye fall? And sometimes a lot of artists, what they do is they'll like measure with the pencil, like they'll extend their hand out like that, and they'll start measuring like this. So if it's like a face, I could do it like this, and then I could, do it like that over here, measure it like that, right? But since I'm at an angle, it doesn't work as well with me right now. So I'm just gonna have to freehand it and kind of eyeball it. All right, so also look at negative shape. Negative shape is an area that you have your main shape, which is, my subject, but then you have this negative shape, which is all of this outside. So it's always really cool to kind of like sketch out your negative shape first. Just like you have an idea where your area, your drawing area is. So there you go. Now I'm just gonna start doing those circles that I mentioned before. So it's a big, big oval right here. And it's very important that you know how to hold a pencil. You don't want to hold it like this. This is, if you start drawing like this and very dark, that is not coming off. Like you could erase it and that thing is not coming off. So you always want to hold your pencil the right way, which is um, very loosely. And I grab it, like I hold it from the top, and I just let it glide through the paper. Like I just let it just on its own, just its own pressure kind of drawing, because I want to be able to erase it at one point. So right now I'm gonna do that center line that I was talking about right here. And then we got this other circle right here, the ear. And right now I'm just very loosely um, drawing this. Very sketchy. You always want to start off very, very big shapes. You work your way to detail, but you also want to start off very loose, meaning very, very sketchy. I don't care about lines coming out over here. When you're an artist, you like, that's fine. It's perfectly fine, because once I start going in, all of that's going to disappear on its own. So okay, now I'm drawing the eyes right now, right here. It's always really important too to try to get your reference image the same size as your actual uh, illustration that you're doing, the actual page. It helps a lot. Because if it's really small and then you want to blow it up, you could do it. I would probably use a grid, and using a grid is like adding, like let's say if my grid on the small page is a quarter of an inch squares, I'm gonna do 1 inch squares on my actual page to blow it up. But that's a whole different technique. That's another approach. Today we're focusing just on freehand drawing and yeah. Okay, so getting my lines down. And let me know if you guys have any questions. I don't know if you guys could actually hear me. Hopefully you can. But I cannot hear anybody. Make sure that I'm not on mute. Good. All right. Okay. Yeah, simple shapes, earrings right here, circles. Okay, kind of like hint at where I want the eyebrows to be, the eyes, the nostrils. And obviously, like when you look at the nose, there's like a top part of it and then it goes down. So this is kind of like the area that's being like on the bottom. So this is my nostril right here. And then one cool thing about if you make observations looking at somebody's face, you'll find that there's like all these little hints, like landmarks, like right here where where the side of the nostril is. If you draw it up, it'll probably give you where the tear duct begins on the eyes. Right here, it might be a little bit, since we're looking at it at an angle. This part is a little bit inside, so it's just also just observation, looking at kind of what it is you're drawing. Right here. All right, so then, like I mentioned before, this is the upper eyelid right here, and the bottom part right here, bottom part of the eyes. And sometimes you gotta like really adjust like my drawing, sometimes something might be a little off, like maybe this part right here, the eyebrow might be a little bit higher. So I'll go ahead and do that a little bit higher. So you always like move things around. And that's the whole reason why you start off with a sketch, because as you keep progressing, you start noticing like, hey, this might be a little, a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left. And this is a cool way to kind of fix it. So right now I'm just suggesting some areas, and I think maybe even her nose might be a little bit higher right here. So this part might be the nostril. And get my eraser. And I always try to avoid erasing, because the more you erase, it starts messing up the texture of the paper. So it might be like right here. And then you could kind of tell too that it was too low, because the distance between the bottom part of the eyelid right here, where you could start seeing the little the little shadow between here and here, you could see that it would have been way longer. So that kind of was a hint that it was way too long. And then we got this part of the nose that kind of goes like this. I'm just gonna add a little bit of shadow right here. So that because I did that, now I gotta modify the rest of my drawing, which will probably be like right here. The lips are pretty simple. Like this is called a booger stopper right here. uh, so it kind of goes up like this, and then you got this part that goes like that, and this one goes like that. Some, and then it kind of goes up like that, like right here. And the lips also have their own little structure. So it has this part right here where it's kind of like a circle right here, like a semicircle. Bottom lip right here. And then I look at this part right here where it's kind of like the beginning of the chin right here. And then the bottom part of the chin. So yeah, my drawing was a little off, but it's all right. That's the whole point of doing that sketch. Now right here, I'm gonna refine just the structure of the head, specifically the face. Just right here, gonna modify it and start looking at those contour lines right here. So you got this line that kind of goes like this. When I was in school, like they always taught us like look at your subject and just look at your pencil and just draw it out, and you'll find the right way, the right line. So right here, it's almost like that. Like it kind of goes like this and inward, like that, just to the inside. Okay. And the eyelids, I'm gonna make it like a little bit. She doesn't have it all the way open, and because she's kind of looking down, her top eyelid also comes down a little bit. If she would be to be looking straight, her eyelid would go up, right? Look at someone do that, and you'll be like, oh, okay, just observation. All right, so I'm gonna do this right here, the hair, kind of like this. And the neck area. Now I gotta modify the placement of the earrings because now it's a little bit more over here. Simple shapes, sketching. That's the key. Like you're gonna get better at drawing the more you do it. The more you kind of do it, you'll understand it. The more you start seeing things, how they kind of connect. Uh, okay. A lot of things are not that important either. Like some of this stuff, like I don't really care about where the placement is. Like I'm not trying to copy, line by line from this to this. This is my interpretation. This is how I draw it. Sometimes your ability helps. The more you do it, the better you get at it. But I'm not gonna try to copy it exactly the same, because I mean there's already a picture, and so this is my interpretation, and that's what I always kind of like about other people's interpretation of art. When I look at hyper realistic drawings, they're cool, they're really nice. They spend a lot of time doing that. It's a lot of technique, and I think that's the most important thing about uh, trying to draw something so photorealistic is just pretty much teaching yourself self-discipline, just being disciplined and learning technique. But I think that if you're copying something exactly like the picture, will save yourself some time because the picture's already been taken, and it took, you snap the picture. When you're gonna invest time in a drawing, make it your own, give it your own individuality to it. Your style, um, all of that. That's what makes art so cool, is that, like I mentioned before, like so many people have drawn Frida Kahlo. You know, there's gazillions of drawings of her, but each one will be so different, because everyone approaches drawing in a very, like, in a different way, different techniques, and you just learn them as you go along. All right, so I think I got my drawing pretty okay. I'm gonna sharpen my pencil a little bit. Also, before you could start coloring it in, or going forward with a to a finished drawing, make sure that your drawing, try to get your drawing as good as you can make it. Meaning, try to get your placement, like the eyes, where they go, before you commit, because once you start coloring it in, and you've committed to it, like that's it. Like there's no going back. So get your drawing good. Practice on your drawing. Get that down. Get your portrait down as best as you can before you start start pushing it all the way. It's easier to fix little mistakes at the beginning, because we haven't invested so much time in it. But once you start painting it, or once you start drawing it or coloring it in with color pencil, you've already invested in it. Like, you're committed to it. So right here, she's looking kind of down. I like this face. She's like, I don't know what she was thinking in this one. Kind of looks kind of sad, but it kind of captures her so well. All right, just there you go. All right. And then just kind of like hint where the shadows are right here. And then if you could see, there's kind of like a shadow right on this. So I guess the light was like on this side somewhere. And it was a very soft light. That's why you don't see so, like, the shadows are not so dramatic. It's a very soft light. I think the first time I started doing portraits, because I've always loved doing life drawings, like, especially when I was in art school, and we had to take life drawing, and we had to draw models and everything. But the first time I started doing portraits, it was kind of by accident. Like, I was actually doing uh, a silkscreen workshop. It must have been like 12 years ago or something like that. But since I was new at silk screening, I didn't really know, like, I couldn't really help the leading artist on doing. I was supposed to, like, burn the images and all that, but since the way that the workshops were formatted, we couldn't really burn them on the spot, so we had to do it beforehand. So then I found myself sort of with a lot of free time, so then I just started doing portraits of people, and that kind of got me started doing portraits. People were like, hey, I want to draw my, like, and since the workshops were free, people got to do their portraits for free. So I would do so many, and you just learn. It's been 12 years that I've been doing portraits. Um, so it's one of the things that I really like doing. All right, so okay, I think that's a pretty good drawing. I think we're probably gonna move on to color pencil pretty soon, and I'm gonna show you guys how to add some color, for mood, and kind of like the color theory, like what the colors kind of mean, um, color harmony and all that. Okay, so I got hair right here. It's like, also, like, if there are certain areas that you can't really tell what they are, like right here with the hair, the way that it's that their hair is done. Just focus on the shapes. Don't even try to draw every single strand, because it's a suggestion. You don't want to invest so much time in something because the main focal point has to be around the face, right? Everything else is extra. Let the brain, let the viewer's brain finish the painting or finish the drawing. Just focus on an area. Everything else is a gesture, you know. When you're looking at life, uh, every single time you're only looking at one thing at a time. Everything else is just a blur, right? It's out of focus. Same thing with a drawing. You know, have areas that are out of focus, just suggestions. Don't invest so much in trying to capture everything. Uh, if it's not that important, you have a hierarchy. You have your main focal point, you have your secondary, and then you have your third, right? It's the order of how important things are. So the most important thing is the face, the eye specifically. Everything else, I'm just gonna make it a gesture. Okay. All right. So cool. So now we got this quick sketch down. I'm gonna go move on to using color. Um, this one's obviously black and white, so we're gonna have to use our imagination and just recreate the colors. But but even some areas you could just leave them but you know what, before I do that, I'm gonna make some of these areas a lot darker. I'm gonna give them content. So I'm just gonna tighten up my drawing really quick. And now I'm holding my pencil like this because now I'm committed to my lines. Okay, so now I'm looking at my darkest areas. And also when I shade, I don't rub my graphite or my pencil or anything like that. What I do is I hatch. So basically this is how I um how I add value, light from light to dark. So then the more I do it, the darker it gets, right? This is hatching right here. There's all these ways of creating the illusion of shading. Uh, Hatching kind of like this, cross hatching goes like that. So obviously like areas that have more, that cross more are going to be darker. But you could also build up your pencil line, start off very soft and then go over it again, with, same kind. I keep the same kind of pressure. I don't want to like press down on it. Um, that's because you're gonna glaze the graphite, and there's a certain point where you start doing that, and no more graphite will stick to the paper. So you always want to keep the texture of the paper to pull that graphite off of your pencil. So that's the same thing that I'm gonna do right here. Just add some value. Look at my shadows. And sometimes it might take forever to do the shading. If you want to not have your mark, like your pencil mark, it could take forever. It's very laborious. I remember one of our classes, we had to do that. It was just the same pressure, but we had to kind of build value, but we couldn't see the pencil line anymore. But there you go. Like I mentioned before, I don't rub. I just go over it, just a little bit. And that's the way that you control your values. Otherwise, it's just going to be all over the place. And mind you, this is just using a regular graphite pencil and regular paper. So you could pretty much create any kind of art with simple tools, the most basic tools. but the fundamental elements of design will always be the same. Get your whether you're doing a painting, whether you're doing digital art, you're it's the same thing, the same approach. It's just different mediums, different tools to use. I got this area right here that kind of like this. There you go. And it's okay, like to, sometimes you could take a while with, doing your drawing. Sometimes it could be quick. You know, take a sketchbook, go to like well, whenever we can, and it's safe to do so again, go to like a coffee shop or a restaurant, and just take your sketchbook and just sketch people. Everyone's so different, different shapes. So there you go. Just a little bit like this. And also if it helps you, like if you use your cell phone to take a picture, a portrait of someone, and you want to see the values and you're overwhelmed by all the colors, because colors also have value. Um, you could just change it to black and white and see your values. When I do a drawing or painting, the first thing I try to get right is my values. So even with a painting, I'll start off with one color and or black and white, and I'll just add dark and light to that one color before I even start my painting. The same thing right here. Right now I'm adding some value before I add the color pencils. It's gonna help me a lot when it comes down to just deciding what color pencils to use, whether it's gonna be like a dark color or a light color. There you go. Very quick, and then everything else over here, just like I said, not that important. All right. Here you go. Maybe this might be a little bit in shadow. Cool. All right, so now I'm gonna move on to color pencils, as I mentioned before. Let me start off with a brown, and let me sharpen this up. Just regular color pencils. Just add some color to it. With this one, like you could have your colors kind of tell a mood. If you want something, like I'm a very like I like my paintings to be very colorful. I use a lot of color on all my illustrations. I just love the colors just being very spontaneous, very vibrant. I just love it. It gives it like this happy vibe. When you start using like cool colors like the blues, the greens, the purples, you start giving it like a different feel to it. You like blues usually mean sadness. If you want to add something like that to your painting or your sketch, you could do the whole thing. Like you could have done all of this with like a blue color pencil, and that would have been perfectly okay. Instead of the graphite pencil, you could do your whole drawing. But again, I start off with the graphite, and then I'll come back in and I'll start adding color to it. And I know that this might be overwhelming, especially if you're a beginning artist or um, but like I mentioned before, everything is all about starting off big shapes, and then as you keep practicing, you start getting better and better. Then you can start getting into the details. Okay. So because this drawing is kind of like she's got like this cool little this cool like this cool feel to it. Like I like the feeling, but you know she seems very sad. I'm gonna go in and probably use some of my blue color pencil to the shadows. One thing I usually never do in any of my paintings, I hardly use black. That's something that I never use on my paintings. I use cool colors instead. Usually, if you have a warm light, like the sun, you know, you're in your home. Usually, we have that yellowish light. You're always gonna have a cool shadow. So even if you go outside, like during the day, midday or whatever, and the sun is really bright and intense, look at your shadow. It's gonna be very cool. It's gonna sometimes it might even seem purple. Um, so same thing here. I always add cool colors to my shadows. So even though I added some of that brown, now I'm adding some of this blue to kind of knock it back, you know. And it's all about observation, just looking at it and you know, uh, adding it to your drawing. And sometimes there might even be things that you might not even want to add, you know. It's up to you. It's your drawing. Like I mentioned before, the most important parts of a drawing are really the eyes. Like when you're trying to capture a portrait. And you could always color, like use a color that and then color over that to add layers of different, different tones and give your piece a little bit more of an interesting effect. So now I'm gonna keep on doing this over here. I'm gonna go to my warm color. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna use like this orange color. If you, I'll use an orange color. What? No, I'll use red. All right. So my red colors are things that I wanted to kind of pop out, right? They come toward me. So I'm gonna add some of this to like the nose, yeah, the cheek area. Like this. And it's okay to even add some to my blue already. And I'm gonna cool this area down. Let's knock it back. And I'm gonna use some of the really dark blue. Come back with the shadows. And you could add as much color as you want to your piece. Like I said, it's your version of whatever it is that you're drawing your subject. It's something that you could actually do for like your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your mom, your dad, grandma, grandpa. a friend, like, hey, I drew something for you. You know, I drew your portrait, and it's always you always get a pretty cool response. Like, oh, thanks. I do little baby portraits for like parents that just had a kid, a little newborn, and I just go back in to even the areas that already have some color. Like I just go back in and just keep adding more color. Like I mentioned before, I just love adding color. Uh, but I use my cool colors for shadows and my warm colors for anything that's light, and I want things to pop out. Okay, and then the flowers, I'm gonna do them kind of yellow and red. Color it in first, kind of like a base color. And just suggest it. Don't try to draw every single petal. Just make a suggestion. Like I just hold my pencil like this, and I just kind of like sketch it out like that. And you look at it, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's a petal. Unless you're trying to do like a super rendered. By rendered means like super finished piece, then and you have like all this time to do it, then go ahead and do it. But when you have like a limited amount of time, just capture it. Just capture it. Don't invest too much. Got my, there you go. Maybe some blue in there, and just random. I'm not no particular reason. Just I just felt like it just needed some blue, and I'm just hitting any kind of spot I could find, and maybe some. Let's add some petals or something. Some green. Right. Um, with regard to color pencil, in regards to color pencil, then the graphite is never as dark. So then you have to come back in with a black color pencil and just hit those really dark areas. Um, of course, so it mixing it in with some cool colors. Uh, just gonna go back in and like you always look at it and you're like, oh, I feel like it needs to be a little bit darker. Then find a way to make it darker. In this case, I'm just gonna add some of this black, but I'm gonna go back in and maybe add some cool color to it. There you go. And the hair, look, I get my pencil like this. It's hair. Just do a gesture drawing of the hair. There you go. Maybe some right here. Also add some shadow inside the eye because the eyelid also creates shadow. And I know that we've seen this our entire life. You always have the eyeballs are always white, even in when they're in shadow, but that's not true. The eyeballs are also part of, they also have to adhere to the rules of light logic. And if they're in shadow, well, they gotta be in shadow. You gotta like this whole area right here is in shadow, so all of this is in shadow, even the eyeballs. There you go. Just little gestures here and there. I personally love to see like sketch marks, like right, like this area right here. I love it. There you go. I'm gonna go back in with the yellow, just to add some color variation. And your highlights, like when if you want to leave like some area like super like a white highlight, just don't color it in. Just leave it. You have to plan it, obviously. Like I already didn't leave it here in the eyes, but that's cool. It's all good. Probably leave some right here. Get some of that. I'm gonna get like a pink. Kind of just suggest that she has some like nice pinkish lipstick there. And once you start like blending the colors, you start noticing like you start getting all these cool color effects. Like right here on the bottom of the upper lip, I'm getting this cool purple magenta-ish color. That's really awesome. I'm gonna go in here, add some more of that blue. Like this. And of course, a drawing you could take as little time as you want, or you could draw for hours and hours. Obviously, we're not gonna do that here, but you know, just invest in plan time, and you don't have to do it all in one sitting either. You could do it in a couple of days. Take your time. Artists take months, some of them years. uh, I'm just adding some more color even to the areas that already had like the cool colors, the blues and stuff like that. I'm just going over it. Kind of make everything in harmony, meaning I don't want things to be out of place. Like I want the colors to work together. Also, try to limit your color palette. Just pick a few colors and just work with that. Don't feel that you have to use every single color that you have at your disposal. Like sometimes even two colors might be good enough. Like your for your warms and your cools, or even one color, a monochromatic, meaning the same color, like a single color. Uh, drawing is fine. Chroma means color, and mono means single, so it's single color, monochromatic. Uh, there you go. Okay, now I did say that I was gonna blend. I'm just gonna add some color, just a general color right here. Well, I keep it very loose. It's a loose sketch, but because I had a pretty good drawing to begin with, your loose coloring will still look good because I spent the time to make sure that my drawing would be pretty okay. As long as you have a pretty good drawing, you're always gonna have a good painting. I'm gonna add some of this color up here. I like it. Some right here in the lips. Okay, go back in here. The like I mentioned before, the more you draw, the better you get at it, and the faster you'll become. Um, like I'm going really fast only because time, but once you start seeing art in a different kind of way, like not something that could be overwhelming or whatever. Once you start kind of like getting the idea of what what you want to do, and the basic shapes and all that, and everything else just will fall into place. Like right now I'm not even thinking about the drawing. I'm just thinking about value, trying to find the areas that might need a little bit darker spots or whatever. Add some color over here on the bottom, some of this brown up here. All right, I got my drawing. Now I'm gonna go in and add some baby oil to blend it. It's pretty quick. This part right here, it's not supposed to be laborious. It's not supposed to be a technique that is gonna take you another, a whole long. It's more like to kind of like get all these pencil lines to kind of blend together, right? Like, so that's what I'm gonna do right now. And for this, you don't want to use your good brushes. Just any regular old brush will do. And $1 baby oil um, will do the trick. Some depending on the type of color that you use, the color pencil, it might work better than others, only because uh, the color pencils, they have pigment, and you want to be able to push that pigment as much as you can. So right now I'm just gonna start blending it in, and with your brush, just kind of back and forth. So I'm gonna get a little bit closer. You can see, and it's beginning to blend. It's a pretty cool technique to get you to use a brush and just blending colors together. And what I love about it is that color pencils are dry media, so you don't have to come out with like a whole setup of water and brushes. It's like you just start drawing, start using your colors, and then at the end, when you're happy with the results, just blend it in with baby oil, and bam, you have a painting. When you start doing professional art, with color pencils, you don't use baby oil. You use different. They sell other. It's like oil, but it's archival, so it will last forever and ever. This one should last a long time too. Nice little gift you could give to someone, and they're gonna be like, "Whoa, what did you do? What did you use? Nice painting," but it was really color pencil. There you go. And what I do is I work in areas. Like right now, I'm doing the dark areas right here, and I want to keep the color. I want to keep pushing it in the dark areas. I don't want to move it to the light areas. Right. And now I'm just gonna focus on the light area right here in the face. And that way you don't have to spend money on watercolor pencils because those are a little bit more expensive. but it's pretty much the same thing. Like if you were to use watercolor pencils, you would do the same thing. You would the same process that we just did right now, but um, instead of baby oil, you just use water. Gonna go up here, and then like these colors just pop once you start adding that baby oil. It almost like if it activates the pigment. And like I said, like I mentioned before, this is just a gesture right here. Let your brain or let the viewer's brain fill out the rest of the drawing. Okay. But you see, like it's just covering big areas. Once you add the baby oil, you could actually go back in and define some of those dark areas, like the shadows. Because the cool thing about baby oil is that it doesn't mess up the texture of the paper. So you could actually layer, like uh, once you add baby oil, just you could keep drawing and coloring over the baby oil, and then come back in with the baby oil to soften that up, and you keep doing that. Uh, color pencil, baby oil, color pencil, baby oil, color pencil, baby oil. You can make something like really, really nice and blended if you do it enough times. And this is even better than getting like trying to rub it with your fingers and messing up the fibers of the paper. So right now, this is literally almost done. I'm just gonna go back in there with like a little bit of color pencil just to like enhance some of those areas, but this is pretty much done, you know. And I'm gonna put my brush away. Let me close the baby oil. You don't want to spill it because it gets all over the place. Okay, let me clean this up a little bit. All right, I'm gonna get my, let me get dark color pencil. I'm just gonna go back in. This black one right here. There you go. Get some yellow on those earrings. Already getting all over, but yeah, that's pretty much it. This is pretty much a finished drawing. I don't know if you guys have any questions. There you go. Add some more color on my drawing. Like I said before, I love color. I love having like all these random colors. Not so random, but the, colors just to enhance your drawing. Always use colors to your advantage.
Hi, Oscar. We do have one question.
And like I said before, like it's not about like you try to capture a likeness, but you also got to make it your own. Um, this kind of drawing, like it's mine. No one has this drawing because it's my unique drawing, my unique, it's got, and the same thing with your drawings is going to be unique to you.
Hi, Oscar. We do have one question. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
There you go. And then cite it. Got my finished piece. So if you guys have any questions, well, what's up? I see you, Barbea. I cannot hear Lulu. Let me see, I took off my headphones. For your audience, do you recommend tracing the shapes? Um, yeah, I think that's whatever's gonna help you kind of learn to see the shapes. Use that. Like if what I would do if you have your photo, I would get a transparent sheet. You know those sheets that they give you in school, so you could put your homework, a presentation, like those plastic sleeves. Get that, and then draw over that. They're super cheap. I think you get like I don't know how much they cost, but they're really cheap. And start messing around with shapes. Look at the shapes first. Look how they kind of form, how they form your subject. uh Find as many as you can. Once you get that, draw the shapes on here, very like I mentioned before, very very loosely. um Start drawing those shapes, and then work do your drawing that way. um but yeah, that's a really good question.
Hi, Oscar. I'm not sure if you can hear me now.
Oh, I could hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you
So,
now.
okay. We don't have so much as a question, but a comment.
Uh-huh.
Rand Thompson just says, thank you so much for doing this workshop and presenting it for everyone.
It was a pleasure. I always love, I love having these kind of chances where I get to teach my approach, my style, my work, to anyone that is willing to see it or to hear it. That's very humbling. When I was growing up, I didn't really have that. Um, Back in the 90s when I was just a teenager, like the only people that I had as people that influenced me were my friends, graffiti artists, other artists, but no one that actually did it professionally would come to our neighborhood to show us how to do it. Like we kind of all had to learn it our own in our own way. um any more comments or suggestions or anything like that? Okay. Well, thank you all so much for sticking around for so long. I know it took forever, but hopefully you guys learned something, like a cool technique, something different maybe you guys might have not seen before. Um, and come back.
come back next month for free family workshops that we're going to be having in on September. So always follow us on Instagram. We're always posting following workshops that we're going to be doing, and hopefully you guys, if you guys do create artwork using this method or any of the other artists' method, tag us. I would love to see your work. um, and thank you so much for joining in, and be safe, everybody. And you know and just paint, just draw, and that's it. Thanks.